Hello, Embers. Welcome to Ember Exchange. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Jill.
And I'm Heidi.
And I'm Nick.
Nick, welcome.
Hello.
If you haven't checked it out already, Nick and I recorded a short segment where we kind of just introduced like who he is and explained why he's now sitting at the table. He was a guest at one point. He's no longer a guest. And so if you want to know more about that, I'd encourage you to go check that out. We talk about aliens briefly. So if that's, at all of interest to you,
Sure thing.
yeah, it would be good. Nick, it's good to have you.
Yeah, good to be here.
All right. So the topic for today, if you live somewhere that isn't under a rock, you will be aware that it is Pride Month. And this is the yearly festival of sexual degeneracy and mental illness that we, for some reason, subject ourselves to every single year. Voluntarily, the world just decides that that's the thing we're going to do. You've probably heard a lot about Pride Month and you might be sick of it. And however, I think it's a very important place for people who have Christian values to speak into. So rather than ignoring it, we are going to take it head on. We're going to be like the Crusaders of old. We have a mission, and our mission is to conquer the pagans and replace their holy days of Pride Month with something ultimately unabashedly Christian. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
All right. Yes. Along with that, so we'll talk about some Pride Month and how we might replace that with something better. But we're also going to talk about cultural syncretism, which I think I've said in previous episodes, this word. So we'll define what that is. We'll talk about what are the pitfalls associated with that. And then we'll have mortal spirits. We haven't done one of those in a while. So those of you who've been missing out, we'll get some of that. And then the second half, we'll talk about, is there a place for the L's and the G's and the B's and the T's in the conservative movement? So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I hope you guys are too. Let's stoke some conversation.
Let's do it.
All right. So here we are. It is Pride Month when people are listening to this, or maybe they're listening to this after Pride Month and like they're binge listening, 3 years in the future and it's December.
Which we appreciate you.
Yes, if
Yeah.
that's you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. We are thinking of you now.
Maybe they'll be listening to this, and at this point, there won't be a Pride Month because we've
taken
replaced
it
Replaced
over.
You know what? That is the spirit I like to hear, Heidi. Because yes, that's kind of this first half is conquering Pride Month. Is how we're going to kind of couch the conversation.
Yes.
I want to start by saying what we are not talking about, though.
Okay.
Because Pride Month, everyone who has a conservative or theological podcast is going to talk about like homosexuality and pride and all of that stuff this month. So there are some things that I don't want to hit on that a lot of people do hit on. Is there a place for homosexuality in the church? That's not the topic for today. The answer is no.
That's it.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah, the end.
You could have a longer conversation. We are not going to. Can a Christian attend a gay wedding? We're not going to talk about that today. There's an answer to that too. I think it's no. You could have a longer conversation about it, but we're not going to today.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
Is gay marriage really marriage? We're not going to talk about that today. That also has an answer, but that's not the topic.
Okay.
Or even how do we as Christians interact with LGBT individuals in our day-to-day life? I think that's actually a relevant conversation that people should have. That is not the conversation that we're having today. No, we are talking about conquering today. And I'm very excited about using the word conquering. And there are some people that are hearing conquering and they're like, oh, the horror. And they're clutching their pearls and they're very worried.
But we are not.
But we're not.
We're not.
I'm not.
That's not
Are you
us.
guys? Do you have any
No.
pearls that you would like to clutch over the word conquering?
Sometimes I clutch my
Personally, no.
pearls, but
Okay.
it'll be okay.
So, for those of you who have the latent tendency of Heidi to pearl clutch over the word conquering, I
Yes.
have two passages for you. Okay. First one being Matthew 28:16 through 20. It is when Jesus is ascending into heaven. So it's the Great Commission. Great Commission. And the words of Jesus are, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, therefore go and make disciples. And this idea that all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Christ, like at that point in time. It's not like something that's going to happen in the future when he comes back a second time. No, he already has all authority.
Yes.
And because of that, then we are sent out to make disciples.
Yes.
Cool?
Yes.
Second verse, Romans 8:31 through 39. This is typically in your Bibles, you'll find this section labeled more than conquerors. And so Paul, in there, has the phrase where he says, "No, in all of these things we are more than conquerors through him who loves us." So conquering is a word that Paul uses, and so I want to keep using it as well. So we're going to conquer Pride Month. How do you guys feel about that?
I can let go of my pearls and pick up my gun. Let's go.
Oh.
Oh, I have nothing to say after Heidi said that. so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that I've got you guys all amped up
Yeah.
about conquering, the thing that we're conquering today is Pride Month. So can somebody give me a picture? Because believe it or not, we've talked about this before right now a little bit.
Yeah.
When we talk about conquering Pride Month, what does that mean? Like, it's not like conquering a country. We're not like taking up arms and going to a place and taking it over. It's like a celebration. What does that mean to conquer Pride Month?
Well, we want to celebrate not Pride Month, right?
Okay.
So we would prefer that what we want to celebrate, which we will maybe give some alternatives later on, but we want to be celebrating what we believe in.
Yes, I concur.
So we're going to try to take it over.
Okay.
So that instead of a pride parade, we have our own parade.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is this something that we just invented all on our own, conquering a month
No.
or a
No.
celebration?
Not at all.
Okay.
Historically, it's actually has happened often.
Yeah.
Probably both like historically and there's maybe a few like modern examples too.
Okay.
But
Can you give me some examples? So, like, what would that look like? Historically, how has this happened? Where would you have seen the conquering of something that isn't a country?
Like when a pagan holiday is turned into a Christian holiday.
Mhm,
Like, for
mhm.
example, Christmas was pagan before.
It
and
was.
Now we celebrate it as a Christian holiday, but now it's actually kind of reverting back to
Mhm.
paganism in a different way. But
Mhm.
we did take it back to celebrate Christ's birth. And that's what it was known for.
Indeed.
holidays are a pretty common one, I think, too.
Yep.
Common as in like there are multiple examples of those. So Christmas being one, Halloween being one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Halloween might be a little bit more well known.
Yeah.
Halloween.
And actually, like, as far as the like shifting towards and away Christian values on like what side of the conquering we're on for holidays, you could probably even lump things in there. Like, we actually talked about Valentine's Day back in February as well, and kind of where that came from and where it is now versus what it is. Same with Easter, a very Christian holiday. However, Hallmark and the consumeristic mindset has maybe also started to conquer that one in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting to see the counter conquering that's
Yeah.
happening, I suppose. But yes, you guys have hit the big ones that I noted. So Christmas, Easter, and Hallowtide, which is Halloween, essentially.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten about Valentine's Day because we did talk about that
Yeah.
very specifically. What was it? The Festival of Lupercalia or something?
Yep.
With the throwing of the underwear and all this
Yep.
stuff.
Goatskin thongs and
Nude women.
yeah,
Yes.
because of fertility.
So conquered for the better, I would say.
No, it's just love.
Yeah.
Uh,
Honestly, even in that case, a Hallmark holiday is better than whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's true.
But Christmas, for example, it seems to me the specific conquering that happened there was a number of different things actually. So a lot of different cultures would celebrate the winter solstice. So the sun, there's like the is it the shortest day of the year where it's the longest night, I think is how they typically will say it.
Sure.
And then after that, they would celebrate the fact that the sun is coming back and it's moving towards spring. And so in Roman culture, they called that Sol Invictus, I believe. And so the Christians came along and were like, hey, how about we talk about the birth of the sun when you guys are talking about the rebirth of the sun?
Wow.
So that was
We're
part
smart.
of it. And then also,
Clever.
so the gift giving and the feasting and the lighting of candles is purported to be associated with the festival of Saturnalia. So that was another Roman festival worshiping Saturn. They were like, nope, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to give gifts, but because we believe in the greatest gift given to man.
Cool. So it's been done.
It has been done.
More than once.
How about Easter? Do you guys know about Easter?
I do know that it should be called Resurrection Sunday.
Interesting, because I knew that you were going to say that, and I am curious to have this conversation. Because, so in the context of conquering, right? Would there not be a case then to be made to say, no, we're taking that name from you and we're making it ours? It is not about I think it was Ostara was the festival, it was a Saxon festival, Ostara celebrating Aoster, however you say the goddess's name, whatever.
Simplified to Easter.
Simplified to Easter, right? That's where the name came
that
from.
actually makes
That's what
sense.
he's trying
Yeah.
to say in not English.
But we're saying no, that name of your festival is now ours. We have conquered it and we're going to use it because it means what we want it to mean.
Right.
I like
Okay.
But like in a good conquering, I think that like renaming is a good idea too. It's
Okay.
like what would be I feel like when a company buys like another company, you usually get put under the company that's getting bought gets put under the umbrella of the buying company's name.
Right.
It doesn't go the other direction, right? Like the company
Sure.
that is the seller, they don't get to keep their name and the buyer goes under whatever they are. And so if we are the conqueror, I feel like we should get to now choose the new name of the thing.
True.
So instead of causing
Sure.
confusion that Easter is in fact a Christian holiday, we should call it Resurrection Sunday.
Because I feel like it went from Aoster or whatever that was to Easter, which
Uh-huh.
was a Christian holiday, and now it's reverting to a non-Christian secular holiday. So we have to take it back again.
Uh-huh. And this time,
More
instead
clearly.
of more clearly and causing confusion, just be like, this is its own thing, but it's better.
Yes.
Get rid of that other thing.
So I get that sentiment.
Mhm.
Are we surrendering the word Easter then?
I think that we should, because Easter Sunday is about more than bunnies and Easter eggs. And it's so strongly affiliated with those things that we have to be distinct and surrender that.
I have to agree with that because where would Easter be used elsewise? Like if we're surrendering it, would it still have a purpose if we were to call it Resurrection Sunday?
Would the word Easter have a
Yeah,
purpose?
yeah.
We wouldn't use it.
Right.
So that's my question is this posture of saying, oh, you can have Easter, we're just going to celebrate Resurrection Day, and you all can celebrate Easter. That doesn't seem like conquering to me. That seems like allowing them to take it.
Oh, I was under the conception that like they can have Easter and we would have Resurrection Sunday. I thought the whole thing would be named Resurrection Sunday.
Which if it were, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not how it's going to happen.
Yes,
because
exactly.
The secular world will
No.
Okay.
I had it-
Sure. Yep.
I had a misconception there, my bad.
Yeah.
They will
Yeah, I
continue
get
to
what you're
celebrate Easter, and we'll just say, oh, you can keep your Easter and bunnies and all of that stuff, and then we'll just take our Resurrection Sunday over here.
So
But that's opposite of what we're trying to do.
I
We're
agree
trying to
with
say,
that.
no, this
No.
is Easter, and we can
like
have
our last-
bunnies and
it's
eggs
like
and
our
stuff,
last
but
two
that's all in
episodes.
service
Right.
to
Is that
Christ.
just compromising?
Right.
And that's just
it's
compromising.
the compromise. There's no conquer.
There's
More than conquerors, but no less than conquerors.
yes. I don't have an answer for that then. Yes.
Just something to think about. I'm not
Yeah.
certain either, because there are those that would say any sort of remnants of the pagan celebration have no place. So
Christmas
d-
trees.
yeah, Christmas trees is one that I've known people who would say, no, we shouldn't have those because that's a carryover from some of the pagan celebrations that were associated with the solstice and whatever, the evergreen, whatever.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't do that, and so we should have something else. I'm of the mind, though, that saying, no, your Christmas tree is ours now, and you want to complain about it, look out, because Earth
Because
Day,
I put
we're
a
going to
s-
take that
yeah.
one too. So
I put a star on top of that tree now.
Yeah.
So to
so
represent the
So you mark it as yours
Uh-huh.
instead of just creating your own.
right.
Resonate with that. I like that.
Now, I think that there is some warning here to beware of syncretism, which we'll get to in a second. I have a couple more examples of conquering that I
Right.
want to go over, but
Right.
syncretism is this idea where it's just like merging together things without the mindset of, no, I'm taking that thing and making it subservient to Christ.
Right.
So you do have to be careful of that, because I think there are people that wouldn't necessarily have that mindset, but
Sure.
we'll get there. I did want to touch on Hallowtide, because I think Hallowtide is really cool, and it's not something that so it was conquered, and we've totally lost it now. Like, Christians don't celebrate Hallowtide. I know people do like trunk or treat or whatever as a way to be like, come get your candy and also hear about Jesus. Okay, like that's fine and good. It's an outreach opportunity. But Hallowtide itself, I think, is really interesting, and I would like to see Christians kind of return to that a little bit and celebrate it for what it originally was, because I think it's really interesting. The the replacement that originally happened was there was a Celtic festival of Samhain, 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 however you would say that in
Samhain.
Celtic dialect, was what got replaced. And they were believing that there was this like boundary between the living and the dead. They got super thin on that night in particular.
Yes.
And so the Christians were like, no, but we're going to use your holiday against your will to celebrate those who have passed on, the saints and the martyrs. So All Saints' Day was November 1st, and then the night before was All Hallows' Eve, where we celebrate Jesus' conquering of death, essentially.
Makes sense.
So I don't know. I thought that was really cool, and I kind of want to bring that back. So reconquer Halloween,
Yes.
Yeah.
in that aspect as well.
That'd be sweet.
You guys are on board for celebrating the
So on
Hallowtide?
board.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to do trunk or treat. I think trunk or treat is totally syncretism
Ah, okay.
and compromise. And I don't think it sticks out from the world as much as we need to. It doesn't conquer anything, it just blends in.
It does. I have one more story about conquering. This is like one of my favorite stories. This isn't a particular holiday,
Okay.
but it's a dude. Saint Bonifus.
We love dudes.
He was a dude. He was also known as Winfrid. So
Winfred, not Winifred.
no, Winfrid.
Winfrid.
Yeah, he was a missionary from England
Okay.
to what is now modern day Germany. It wasn't like incorporated Germany at the time, but like pagans is where he was. He was a missionary, an English missionary to the pagans.
Okay.
And I imagine he was sainted after he was a missionary, but I'm just going to call him Saint
Probably.
Boniface. Anyway, he was a missionary there, and he came across a tribe that was worshiping Thor, which is, I guess I don't know how all of the religions bleed around in there. It's in Germany, but they were worshiping Thor, and they had this tree. They called it the Thunder Oak. And he was like, no, you are not going to worship Thor anymore, and my God is real, and yours is not, so I'm going to chop down your tree. And they were like, yeah, right, bro. You're going to try to chop down this tree, and Thor's going to smite you. And he was like, no, he's not. And they're like, yeah, he's like, watch me. So he chopped down the tree, and all the pagans were like, what? Because he didn't get struck by lightning, and they all converted on the spot, essentially.
Yeah.
And then that tree that was like this sacred tree to Thor got made into a stave church. So that's like how they built churches kind of in the medieval time. And I think they did it without nails and stuff. So it was all, anyway.
Oh.
So he turned this
like
tree,
Lincoln logged to half
he
church.
conquered this tree and turned it into a church, and all the pagans were like, yes, Christ is king. And I'm like,
That's awesome.
that's
That
awesome.
is awesome.
So,
Just
Like,
like
Saint
it's
Boniface.
Elijah.
yeah, literally. Like I was thinking on the mountain, and he's like, "And I'm gonna have fire suck up all your water and the wood and everything." Okay.
Exactly. We're going to talk more about Elijah later because also very cool story.
Yes.
This idea of conquering, I hope that this was instructive in that this isn't we didn't come up with the idea of conquering Pride Month, right? This is something that historically Christians have done where they take a pagan holiday or a pagan thing and say, no, we are going to do something different and better and bring it into service of Christ.
Yes.
So-
But arguably, right now, as in past decade, 2 decades, probably more like 2 or 3 decades, we just have done a bad job of it.
Yes.
We haven't done any of it.
Yeah. So we want to do it
we've
again.
We've lost because, right, you guys were mentioning some of these things that we've conquered, we started to lose again.
Yes.
So, right,
Yes.
like we're losing Christmas, we're losing Easter, we've totally lost Halloween.
Yep.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that comes from the next part of this conversation,
Yes.
which is cultural syncretism or just syncretism in general.
Mhm.
So, is this a term that you guys were familiar with?
Not before we
No.
started talking.
Okay. How would you describe it in your kind of preparation for this? What does syncretism mean?
Merging,
Okay.
essentially, the merging of different ideas into one common idea.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Maybe also due to the most recent episodes, and if you haven't listened to those, go ahead and go back to those. But like, just compromise.
Yeah.
This is literally just
Yeah.
compromise.
It really does feel that way. And it was interesting because I think when we planned out what these episodes were going to be, I didn't have in my mind that we were going to talk about compromise and the pro-life movement immediately before then now talking about cultural syncretism. But there really is a rhyming or a symmetry there
Yep.
Yeah.
that is 100% true. So I think you're totally right.
I mean,
Syncretism?
what is it? Syncretism?
Yep.
Syncretism,
Syncretism
yeah.
happens in a variety of different spaces too. There can be religious syncretism, cultural syncretism. I don't know, anything really.
Yeah.
Political syncretism, I
Political.
think, is one. Yep.
For sure.
So
Yep. So, and we're really seeing that in this day
Yeah.
and age where everyone wants to love everybody, which just means that everybody has to accept everybody, which then means everyone has to agree on some sort of common thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it just
a lot of that melds
becomes-
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And melting pot is a term that came up particularly. So there was syncretism, and then there were the categories that you were saying. So cultural syncretism. One of the ways it was defined in my looking at this was, did you guys grow up hearing about America being a melting pot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's immediately what I thought of
Yeah.
when you said that.
And so that I think is one of the ways that people try to define that. And so what's interesting
Mm-hmm.
is that it is not this. So assimilation would be another word, I guess. That is
Yes.
distinct from diversity and multiculturalism, which is like all the rage now. Because if you say assimilation, that's like a curse word. Like, how dare you think that people from other cultures should come and adopt what it means to be an American?
Right.
Right.
So that idea of cultural syncretism and melting pot is kind of rejected now in favor of maybe more of a salad bowl analogy, where everybody kind of stays distinct and they all get mixed around, but there's no like amalgamation. What's interesting,
Right.
though, is that I don't know that I'm super excited about the melting pot analogy, though, now putting it in the context of cultural syncretism.
Okay.
Because if you're saying that you've got multiple things and you're going to put them in a pot and they're going to mush together and you're going to get one thing out that's kind of a blur of all of those things,
I don't want to be a blur of certain
No, because
things,
there are-
especially in our culture.
there are
Right.
objectively things culturally that are better than other things.
Right.
Yes.
So we need it to be a salad bowl.
No, or we just need to not include things.
Yeah,
right?
we
So
need it
if
to
you're
be a
going to
s-
come here
yeah.
and you're going to bring your pagan religion from India or whatever, you
It
don't
doesn't
get to
come.
melt that into my pot. You get to leave that at the door, and you can be and adopt what I have because it's objectively better. But you don't get to bring in your garbage from somewhere else because there are things that are objectively better, and that's something
Yes.
that I think that
Mm,
people have lost.
that idea.
And so I wouldn't even go back and say, "Oh, we're at salad bowl. We should go back to melting pot." I think we need to go a step further back and say, "No, Christianity is better."
We need separated plates.
Yeah, I don't want
Toddler
to
plates.
jeopardize my metal by letting in certain alloys that just weaken it.
Exactly, precisely. So anyway, that was, yeah, some of my thoughts getting towards is cultural syncretism
I'm
a
with you.
good thing or not?
Yeah.
But this
it
is
has
also,
been happening.
it has been
I mean,
happening
historically. It's
historically.
been happening, but also modern day has been happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one, at least religiously, kind of on the same strain of thought that you're going on there, is this decline in observation of traditional Christian holidays and practices. So
Mhm.
Easter becoming more about the Easter eggs and the Easter bunny, and same thing with Christmas kind of occurring there as well. And then Halloween being conquered, and then essentially just going completely the other direction with that. So that's like, yeah, syncretism in the fact that, like you were saying, you were like trunk or treat.
Trunk or treat, primary example, because that's the church just trying to fit right into the world and thinking that we're going to be a light in the darkness when we're just joining the darkness.
So how do you distinguish then between something that is conquering of something versus just assimilating or merging things that ought not be merged? Like, so for example, should we stop having our kids hunt for Easter eggs on Easter?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, yeah, I was going to say, I think that specifically with the trunk or treat example that you're using,
Mm-hmm.
churches are using exactly what the pagan holiday already celebrates, which is
Yes.
really truly right, dressing up and getting candy. So you're not conquering anything because nothing is changing. You didn't change anything in that in trunk or treat. Everyone's still dressing up and getting candy.
Yep.
And then you just throw in a little bit of Jesus on the side. and
side.
hope that people
Exactly.
are.
Alternatively, if we celebrate All Hallows Eve and then do something on like November 1st to celebrate the saints, that's not dressing up and getting candy. It has to be distinctly different, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
It
So-
can be on the same date. It can have a similar, like All Hallows Eve, obviously using a similar name. We can still call it Halloween, but we're doing something that's distinctly different,
Okay. I think that seems to resonate.
I think.
Right, because otherwise people, they'll
How
think,
are you
oh,
different?"
Christianity is just like a sprinkle of Jesus on the side.
Right. It's all of the same stuff that everyone's already doing, just plus Jesus, and that's not what we mean when we mean conquering.
Which
Right.
is cultural syncretism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then I did see, at least modern day, outside of the religious sect, the politically and culturally, that I think things like politically, we started with, well, being gay is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now same-sex marriage is legal. And now we are in a complete erosion of gender distinction. And it all stems from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those slopes that is indeed slippery.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ, it continues with the plus because it all started with the LGB.
Yep.
And it continues. And then the other one that I thought of as well is just the feminist movement, which we've talked about a lot in a lot of episodes on this, and just the way that it has taken over every female's life everywhere. And then in addition to that, most men's lives too.
Yes.
Because we've said, okay, like maybe we shouldn't go as far as being a part of the feminist movement, but they can be equal and they can
Be leaders.
yeah, they can be leaders, and that's fine and that's good. And actually, that's probably better anyway because that's
Because
really
would you rather be in the forest with a man or a bear?
yeah.
Right.
So
If you're listening to this not in 2024, it's okay.
not
You don't
worth,
need to
worth your
no,
time.
not
Yeah,
worth
not
your
worth it.
time. So right, so I think that those things also bleed together, and
Yeah. And even things medically too, right? Like
Yeah.
mental health. It's like that used to be not a thing even when our parents were growing up, and now everyone has anxiety and depression and PTSD and
Right.
everything under the sun. And that affects our culture. And so when everyone thinks that they should have a problem now, that changes
Yep.
the way we're going.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is syncretism or cultural syncretism always bad then?
none
It's
of the
always
examples I gave I can think of where they're good,
I can't really think of a good example.
of where it's okay.
Yeah, where it's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
example, I think the answer is no asterisk for the same reason I said that I'm not a huge fan of melting pot now that I've thought about it.
Right.
The one case where I am cool with cultural syncretism is American food. Because I can go down the street and I can get tacos or I can get Chinese food very easily because it's a melting. And not only that, but I can get a taco pizza. Okay. You realize how insane of a concept that is.
Yeah.
You've got a taco and a pizza, and they're not the same thing. And then you put them together because America melting potted those two things together, and you can have taco pizza.
All
And that is a positive example of cultural
Yeah.
syncretism. Other than that, I don't actually know that there is, in things
Yeah.
that actually matter for life. But
Yes.
Anyway.
So overall, we really are like in rejection of cultural syncretism.
Yes.
I would say so. So that's
Yeah.
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 the
Same.
reason then that we've had this conversation is because the second piece of this conversation of conquering Pride Month is not just that we say your Pride Month is ours now, but what is it? And so what I want us to do is have this sort of space to like brainstorm of, okay, if we're going to conquer Pride Month, what are we conquering it with? And so we've been thinking about different ways that we could conquer Pride Month, but I think it's important that we keep in our minds, is this cultural syncretism or is it actually conquering and replacing it with something better?
Right.
So
Yes.
ladies first. I think we go ladies first.
I think so
second
too.
that.
Okay.
All right.
Heidi, you're up first. What is your proposal? Pitch to us how you want to conquer Pride Month.
I want to call Pride Month the Defense of Marriage Month.
Okay.
And this goes back to, and is a nod to President Clinton, actually,
Oh,
because he signed the Defense of Marriage Act into law on September 21st, 1996.
Okay.
And this act declared that no state should be required to recognize a same-gender marriage performed in another state.
okay.
So it was closer to what we want. And it also defined marriage as only between a man and a woman for the purpose of federal law, which is exactly
What
we
happened?
want.
That we had a Democrat loser degenerate like Clinton signing something like that.
Don't ask me, but then Biden, who could also be named those things, he came in 2022 and came up with the Respect for Marriage Act,
Oh, it's so tiresome and
Yeah.
just disgusting.
which repealed the Defense of Marriage Act
Okay.
and requires federal and state governments to recognize the validity of same-sex marriages. The Defense of Marriage Month is certainly a nod to this idea that marriage, not even the idea, the fact that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Definitionally, anything that isn't marriage.
Right.
We said we weren't going to talk about that, but there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so I think that heterosexual people should just be having parades just like the pride people.
Okay. Instead of the pride people, we're going to take over their parades.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to take it over, and we are going to come out with our families who are biologically ours
Yep.
or adopted with
Mhm.
love. And yeah, we're going to,
Okay. Are we going to make a flag?
we can.
No,
No. Jill thinks no flag.
we live in America.
So
is
we
true.
use the American
We
flag.
fly an
Okay.
American flag, and so can the defense of marriage.
So we're reconquering the American flag then as a part of this.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Great.
We're
So
gonna, yeah.
contender number one,
Mm-hmm.
Defense of Marriage Month. I
Yes,
like it.
yes.
Thank you, Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Other lady is first. Jill. What is your proposal for conquering Pride Month?
Okay, so I came up with a bunch of random names because I was kind of having fun with just renaming the month in general.
Okay.
So I'll start with those. And really everything that I have to do for the month can land they could fall under any of the names that I created for
Okay.
the month.
So pick your favorite name and then describe for us what that is.
Well, I'm going to just one. I'm going to pick two.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
going to say two
Nice.
of them just because. So one is really dumb because
I
it's
like
just-
them.
It's just a play on words. So it's June is the month we're taking over.
Uh-huh.
So it's Generational Wealth Month
Generational wealth.
Okay.
or generational
Or
wealth.
generational wealth
Uh-huh.
for those who didn't pick up on what that was.
Like I
yes.
said.
Okay. Nice.
That's just
That's
my punny one.
so punny, Jill.
Thanks. Okay. But the actual one that I think I would pick is the Patriarchal Pride Month. So we'll keep it Pride Month, but we'll just add patriarchal in front of that.
Okay.
Patriarchal Pride Month works because Father's Day is already in June.
Mm-hmm.
So we can now take Father's Day and just make it the whole month and
That's sweet.
celebrate the fact that fathers as the head of the household and the leaders representing the importance of raising children and a family and living in communities that are going to look towards their father for leadership, and then that father is obviously looking towards the ultimate father.
How would you respond to people who say that we shouldn't have the word pride in the name of our holiday because pride is a sin? Because mine also has pride in the name, so I
Okay.
have a response.
I
to this. I'm
don't think
curious
that
what you have to say.
there is the difference between pride as the sin,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
and then there is the difference of in the Bible, for example, there is obviously the verse the Lord will say my good and faithful servant. Having pride in an egotistical way is different than being proud of something. So we are proud we should be proud of being a Christian.
Right.
Yes.
And I wouldn't say that that's a sin.
Okay. I think that's a pretty good answer. The additional note I would say is that Paul actually uses the word pride to describe how he feels about other missionaries and believers in churches. So just to say that any use of the word pride means it's a sin, there's very specific examples of Paul using it in the context that you just said, and so I concur.
But wouldn't that be something that someone who's LGBTQ could also say? They'd be like, I'm proud of being gay.
And we would say you can be proud of being gay, and that's sinful because being gay is sinful.
Right, but it doesn't change the fact that they're proud of it.
Sure. So the reason that I don't like Pride Month isn't because it uses the word pride, it's because it's gay.
Right, yeah. But I'm the point being that they wouldn't see it as prideful. But I guess that's not the reason that you don't like it anyways.
Yeah.
Precisely. Which I think actually is something that people will often use to say, we have a whole month called Pride Month, and that's the root of all sin. So see, that's how evil it is. They're celebrating the root of all sin.
I mean,
Which, yes, arguably, yes,
Yeah.
that is a case to be made. But I think that you could also argue against it not relying on a synonym or a word that has two meanings, one of which I think we would say is actually an acceptable posture to take in one that is the root of all evil.
mhm.
So, all right. What was the name of that one?
Patriarchal Pride Month.
Patriarchal Pride Month. All right. Entry number 2. Nick, I would like to hear your entry for how we're going to conquer Pride
So,
Month. What you got?
Biggest thing for me is I have a whole thing, but I don't really have a good name.
That's okay.
So-
I don't
Alright.
love the name of mine either, so
Yeah,
we'll help you
so-
workshop it.
I have
mine's
6
probably-
names that I didn't get to use.
Oh, okay.
Which
Lend
I
you one.
like one of yours.
I was trying to think
Anyway.
of something clever that went along with
Go
it.
ahead and describe it, and then we'll try to
Yes.
name it.
Okay, perfect. So mine would just be ignore it all. Like, don't feed the fire. Don't feed it. I feel like these type of things, because they say no publicity, I'm sorry, no publicity is bad publicity, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
it kind of goes in the same effect where it seems like whether you're being negative towards it or you're activating it, it's still getting coverage and it's still growing. So if we were going to celebrate it in a way, we had a month, we would take our kids, our family, and those who we love that we actually have a voice to, and we would educate them on what the Bible says and in the healthiest way possible. And it's more or less being very active in the community, families, and whatnot, and just like really not being okay with it and letting people know that you're not okay with it, but doing it in a loving way, like Jesus would.
So you're not saying don't do anything. You're saying have a month where like families are super intentional about
Yes.
getting together, about being vocal about the fact that we do not agree with it.
Yes.
But we are not
My
like,
idea of that would be like, no, this is not protesting. We're not going out protesting because I feel like that doesn't get anywhere. It's where we stand firm in what we believe in, not feeding it anymore. Because it kind of reminds me of like, we all know it's like someone who's an attention seeker, right? They had no one giving them attention and nothing to feed off of. They have no power. That's kind of like the movement itself, I believe. It would lose momentum. I feel like that's a good stance we could have as Christians. And I guess an example of that would be we got together and we would just really connect with family and share the gospel and whatnot and really resonate with people you normally wouldn't get together with because it's a holiday. It'd be like using it for good.
so you're saying you advocate for no protests or anything to conquer, but you think that over time we will conquer by celebrating within our Christian community and within the conservative movement on a more like local level, right?
Yes. Being involved in your community, it's like you guys were saying, we should take and be proud of what the norm is. I feel like the real battles are fought with teaching the upcoming generation the truths, conquering it in a way of where we're firm in what we believe. We're taking action.
Okay. Was there a name in Jill's list that you think would apply nicely to that?
The idea that you take a month specifically to focus on your family.
Mm-hmm.
You have a kid, maybe you have a couple kids. You teach them that for the month of June, and then they have a couple kids each, right? It continues to grow and grow and grow. So you end up conquering it in that sense because also we're multiplying and they aren't because they think they're polluting the planet with human beings. So kids are a blessing, not a burden.
Uh-huh.
And we are focusing on the family. So we could name it Family Juwels, but Juwels. But
Like
also
your family
because a
jewels.
man has the family jewels.
And I love it so much. Because anytime my brother would get hit by a baseball, my mom would be like, not the family jewels.
Obviously, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But
I don't know how to react.
I
I love it.
what's shocking is I like it a little more than I thought, Dylan.
But it's spelled Juwels because it's
The clever
in
spelling
June.
is the icing.
Which
but
is
I don't,
great. Because you're going to come up with like educational programs and all these things that families can do together.
I'm not in love with it, but it's getting my attention.
And it's called Family Jewels. And everyone
And you're going to be
gets
taught by your father.
excited. Yes.
It's an important
Maybe
part of it.
About how the mom and the dad are important. It's going to be whole
gonna
sex
be
ed. It's
great,
going to
yeah.
be great.
Might be a little counterintuitive with the sexual innuendo. With most families, they're
It's
gonna
like
be
all of the Disney movies where it's like super clean, but if you're over the age of 21, you get all of the jokes. And you're
Right.
like, this went over my 5-year-old's head, but that was really funny.
Exactly. That's the point. And parents are going to love it. And churches
Okay.
will have fun with it.
Yeah.
And it's a whole educational program, and all the families are together.
I mean, okay, the way that
Okay.
you're describing it in my mind, yeah, I'm making it sound like it's a special school to learn, but it'd be more like it'd be getting the community together and showing the nuclear family structure and how good it is. It'd be like a good example. Because if I just remember if I was young and I was like, there's a lot thrown at kids nowadays. And like, how are we going to win this battle, right? It's going to be the kids coming up. It would be a whole month dedicated to that. And it needs a name.
Family Jewels.
Family Jewels.
All right.
Love it.
All right.
Yes, submitted.
So,
I want it.
my entry to this is Generational Pride Month. So there's a lot of shared themes here where like the biblical structure of the family is front and center to whatever celebration this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also would concur with Nick that I don't think this is about going and protesting gay people. It's essentially, living as though that degeneracy doesn't exist and you don't even give it the time of day. I concur with that. I think then we also replace it with something where we are celebrating for ourselves. And so I want to call it Generational Pride Month, which ties
Generational.
Yep.
Generational.
Anyway, the name is open for workshopping, but we'll go with that. The purpose here being that we are recognizing the promises of God to his children and to their children as well. So this continuation. And I have 4 observed holidays within the month that are associated. So like you said, Father's Day already exists in June. So we're covered. I think we would move it to like the first Sunday instead of the third Sunday or Monday or however you want to do it of the month. Move it on earlier on. But it's already there. So that's not a hard sell. Mother's Day.
Sorry, time out. Would you still call it Father's Day or would you call it like Patriarchal
You
Day?
know what? I'm all for Patriarchal Day. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, great.
And then
Patriarchal pride.
do we call the second one the
Matriarchal.
no, because that would be
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Oiko Despot Day.
yeah, it could be Oiko
Yes.
Despot Day. Or because we actually want people to participate in these things and we don't want to scare them with too many new words, we can just call it
Oh.
Father's and Mother's Day.
Okay.
But we would move
Okay.
Mother's Day to the
We'll
second
call
Sunday.
it Patriarchal
of
and
June.
Oiko Despot Day in our household.
That's fine. But the second day would be Mother's Day. So we'd move it from May into June. So we've got Father's Day, we've got Mother's Day. Then the third one is Grandparents' Day. So
That's
now we
the true
acknowledge.
I
generational.
love
Oh.
Grandparents' Day.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So now we've Father's Day, we're recognizing father's the cornerstone of the home. Mother's Day, celebration of motherhood in the home and caring for it and making it the Oiko Despot and all that stuff that we've talked about. Grandparents' Day, we're honoring those who have built the legacy and passed it on because without grandparents, you won't have mom or dad. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is Heirs' Day. So now we're talking about those who will inherit the legacy.
Absolutely.
And this would include more than just the firstborn son, because when you think of the word heir, you think of firstborn son. But everybody, all children inherit the family name and its reputation. And so instilling in children, your family name means something when you do something that reflects on you and your family, because that's something that we have lost, I think, is this idea of bringing glory or shame to your family name, right? That used to be a really big deal. And people don't even think about that anymore. So I want to bring that back, and that would be something that could be incorporated into this. And this is in direct opposition to and conquering Pride Month because the family as prescribed by God is imperative for a thriving society. And you look at the way that our society is degrading, I think it has a lot to do with the destruction of the nuclear family. So bringing that back front and center, as has been a common theme in all of ours here, I think is a really worthy thing to have a whole month-long celebration of. And then it's fun because you get to call out fathers and mothers, which we already do. You get to call out grandparents in a bigger way. And then there's this like heir passing on the legacy thing that I really think is cool. So
But this is great because it's a direct opposition to what the left believes, and that would really come out because the left wants to erase fathers and mothers and fathering and mothering and replace it with parenting,
Yep.
where you can have 2
Like-
moms, 2 dads, 18
No.
brothers and sisters.
Polyamorous throuple.
Yeah.
Maintaining the sanctity of marriage
That's the
between
thing,
a man
Nick.
and woman.
Right. So 1 man and 1 woman, 1 mother, 1 father.
Yep.
And then grandparents, I mean, the left just wants to euthanize old people.
Yeah.
And then children, the left wants to abort them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So it's
we
like-
are life.
It is
they are
literally, it's literally the sign of
Life
like
month.
strong societies
Yeah.
death. Mm-hmm.
And
and everything
and
they want
pride,
to try to
the
bring
right
down.
kind of pride in your family
Yes.
and what that means to be like, I am my family and that means something.
Yeah.
And my kids will inherit that as well. And that means something.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What my mom always used to tell me that she was like, that is not the way the Smiths act.
Mhm.
Like she used our family name as something that we needed to be proud of and like show up well for.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
served me
A
well.
representation.
I
Of
think
it.
something we could do too is like for the people who are in families that don't have a good family name, it'd be like an encouragement to be like, hey, you can start right now.
Exactly. Yes, that's a great point. There's got to be a generation zero. And so
Yes.
if you don't have grandparents or parents that were a part of this this is your opportunity to be this for you and your children going forward, so that
could really
eventually you're celebrated
combine-
on Grandparents' Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could really combine what Nick is saying as we teach our family and our kids into what you are saying
Yep.
in what it is. And we could still call it the family jewels, because I'm just saying.
We could call it the family
Absolutely.
jewels.
And then all of that will just make the Defense of Marriage Act
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
Wow. Embers, if you have a great name for what this Concord holiday month is,
Yes.
leave it in a comment. All right. Well,
June.
so
Bring
that's
it back.
that was part one.
Wait, can we just do that in our households? Like, we can just do that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Heidi, we will.
That's and so I would advocate. This is a really great point, because we came up with this idea and we said words and it's not actually going to become anything.
Yeah,
That's
what
the
are we
thing.
going to do?
What if
Who,
it does?
who decides what you celebrate when? Like,
right.
yeah, everyone else celebrates Mother's Day on May whatever, and Father's Day on the third Sunday in June, but nobody's forcing you to celebrate it then. We can just do this, and that is precisely how this is going to
There's
get
like a
conquered.
thing. Yeah,
We're
there's
just
like
going
a
to do
thing
it.
online
Yeah.
where you can just submit, like, if the calendar isn't already taken for the day, like, because there's like chocolate day and popcorn day and
Right.
whatever in the year. Like, well, you can just go and submit your day onto this thing online, and then like it just becomes a day.
You could do it that way if you wanted it to be on the same tier as Popcorn Day, which nobody cares about. But
I
if you want
realize-
to just
But
do it,
eventually, if we do it, we can put it on a calendar.
yeah,
Which would
you
be
could.
sweet. And then eventually it could become like a federal.
Yes,
not
that's
necessarily a
once we've
federal
conquered
holiday.
all the way up to the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But for now, you're exactly right. This is like the sort of thing where we just do it. The same thing like this. I mentioned this to a few different people. For like all the Hallowtide, people don't celebrate that. But I can just say for my family, yeah, we're going to celebrate Hallowtide and make that a thing. And then my
Totally.
kids will know, oh yeah, we do that at Halloween. Everyone else dresses up and asks for candy, but we celebrate the martyrs and the saints and all of the souls of people who have passed on.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. So you can just start doing this. Like the ducks at the park are free. Like you can just, the elites don't want you to know that you can just celebrate this if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just text your mom, be like, "Happy Mother's Day in
Yes.
June." She'll be like, "What?"
Yes.
Be like,
Yeah, we're conquering Pride Month. It's Mother's Day today. Aren't you glad you knew? Oh, by the
Yeah.
way, Airs Day is in 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks. Buy me a
If
gift.
you want to send me a card,
Yeah.
Honestly. You don't even have to get a gift if you don't want to.
No.
I mean, like, at least at our church, they do flowers on Mother's Day. Just do the flowers 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
In June.
Okay,
There you go.
I'm in.
All right.
We're changing the world.
Well, so that's part one.
family jewel at a time.
One family jewel. They come in pairs,
I was
folks.
gonna,
They
I
come in
was gonna
pairs.
say maybe two, but
Jules.
So that is our conversation. We covered a lot of ground there. Cultural syncretism, conquering, why conquering is a good thing. And I think that we've got some pretty great ideas on how we can go about conquering Pride
Yeah.
Month. So
Let's go.
we're going to take a break. We've got some mortal spirits. I know you guys have been waiting. And then we're going to come back. And in the theme of Pride Month, we want to talk a little bit more in this syncretism space, but on the political side. What do we do syncretically with LGBT and the conservative movement? So
Cool.
stay tuned. Okay, cool, folks. It's Mortal Spirits again, finally. Woo!
We're
Yeah,
back.
Jill is most excited.
Yeah.
So
Pumped.
just to like upfront this, if you listen to episode 3 where we talked about alcohol, Nick doesn't drink alcohol, so this is a segment where he's going to be heckling and sniffing, but he won't be partaking, and that's totally okay. But heckling is encouraged. You're good to be a heckler.
yes.
Yeah,
I
you
just
should
meant
be
I will
making
be
fun.
partaking through the nostrils.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but then everyone stopped and looked at me, and I was like, I guess I'll say it.
Sorry. I don't think that sentence means what you think it means.
No,
I don't think you are going to be partaking through the nostrils.
you're not gonna
Ye-
snuff
You're
it
not
up
going
your
to.
nose.
Yeah,
Hence why I didn't say it, but I still did.
that's okay. He will be enjoying the aromas.
Yes, the aromas.
And that's as far as we'll get. But that's okay because that's like a whole third of enjoying whiskey.
I know.
So it's all right.
So a
So
fraction of it, I'm pumped.
today, I have brought the Ardbeg Heavy Vapours.
Ardbeg.
I've
Beautiful.
I've opened this bottle and sampled it regularly, so it's not a brand new one for me, but it will be new for you guys. And I am super excited about this one because I don't know if it was last. I think
Vanna
it was the
White?
last one. Heidi said like, "Oh, I'm getting a smoky flavor,"
Uh-huh.
and I said, "Oh, really? I haven't actually brought anything smoky." That's about to change today. This is very smoky, and Ardbeg, the distillery in particular, is known for their distinctively maritime and peaty whiskeys. And when you hear peaty, you often associate that with very smoky. It is an Islay Scotch, which means it's from the Islay region, which is also known to be very peaty and smoky.
Thank you.
A bit of history about Ardbeg. They have been producing whiskey since 1798, so very old. But they began commercial production in 1815. They have had a history of making things and pausing and this and that and the other thing. But they have been generally known, like I said, for their peaty style, but also for their sweet citric notes and tarry smoke, which you are probably getting a substantial amount of on the
Yes.
nose.
The tar.
Yes. One of the things that I've experienced is that their approach to branding is very unique. And so you're noting the box there.
Yeah, this is an intense box.
So when I think of Scotch, I think of like refined and dignified and like suit jackets and cigars and everybody's all like hoity-toity, right?
Yes.
Ardbeg does it a little bit differently. And so I'm going to actually read.
I was going to say, reading that story there.
Yeah, well,
There's like
so you
on
could
the
read this
side
one.
though, for those that can't see, sorry, there is like a dog dinging a hole, which is creating like a cloud monster. And the cloud monster is like staring down at this girl.
It's a lady. She's Agent 46. Agent
Yeah,
46.
sorry, Agent 46, aka Jackie, committee chair and interplanetary detective.
So
Anyway,
like that's the
so
thing,
it's like
right? It's just
story.
like
You wanna read
there's
the
lore.
story?
There's lore. Nick,
Yeah.
would you like to read? You can just read the story so far for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
The story so far, it started with a distress signal from Islay.
Isla.
Isla.
There you go. Yep.
As Agent 46 stepped through the time stitch into the distillery, thick clouds of heavy vapor enveloped her, filling her lungs. Dropping to the ground, she sucked in the clean sea air as a small dog emerged from the gloom. Thinking quickly, she looped her belt through his collar. They fought their way through the thick vapors as he led her to the still house in a shock discovery. The purifier was gone.
What does that mean?
The heavy vapors were accumulating and breaching the doors. Instantly, the barking dog seized the hem of the agent's copper rain mac in its jaws, pulling her towards the still. Agent 46, aka Jackie, committee chair and interplanetary detective, knew what had to be done. In the year 2023, in the time plane dimension known as the planet Ardbeg Day, all will be revealed.
Okay.
Whoa.
So yeah, there's I think a
There's like more
lot
on
of
the
just
back.
made up
I
stuff
don't
there.
know.
Let's go.
Anyway,
Wait, it's a cliffhanger?
yeah, because they're good.
Gotta drink and find out.
So this is a limited edition release in 2023, specifically for the Isla Festival of Music and Malt. And it's an experiment by Dr. Bill Lumsden, the director of whiskey creation at Ardbeg, where he, for the first time in Ardbeg's history, tried to make a distillate without using the purifier. So it's just one of the components of the still that balances out the flavors. And so he was like, but what if we didn't use that? And so then they wrote up the whole lore of like the vapors and the purifier is missing and all of this stuff, just to have like a fun way of talking about this whiskey. So anyway, that's like a whole branding thing that you don't find in other whiskeys, which makes it really fun, I think.
Yeah.
It
So-
smells like gasoline.
Oh, really?
Like straight up.
Okay. Well, we will move on to the tasting.
Got a
here.
little gasoline.
Yeah.
This is a single malt Scotch whiskey, 100% malted barley. It does not have an age statement, but it has to be, I think, at least 3 years old. The proof on this guy, I didn't
But it
write
said it
down.
was a limited edition released in 2023.
The proof is 46%. Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, it said that it was a limited edition released in 2023
Yes,
on Ardbeg
correct.
Day.
Yes.
So how's it 3 years old?
It was released then,
Oh,
but they
okay.
distilled it. They like left it in the
Yes.
barrels before then.
In
Right.
2020, this is COVID.
Yes. So 20
All right.
ish. I mean, or it could
Yeah.
have been older than that,
Yeah.
but anyway.
Okay.
So the color, the first thing you'll
like-
note
it's
before
very
you
light.
it's super light. This is the clearest whiskey of any like Scotch or bourbon or anything that I've ever seen. It's described as nearly clear with a hint of straw. So very, very transparent.
Kind of like gasoline, Heidi. I get it.
It
Yeah.
is,
Now on the
Looks like
nose,
gasoline, smells like gasoline.
I'm getting the gasoline, I'm getting the tar, I'm getting the campfire.
okay.
It's like a campfire started with gasoline.
So the description is smoky with sea spray, cloying earthy sweetness with a touch of citrus,
The citrus I'm catching.
lightly medicinal, which can be menthol or other things like ammonia. I don't know if it's ammonia.
I got
Sometimes
a lot
there's
of like fire.
so
came
one of my
with that.
friends describes Isla as having band-aids, as kind of like if you smell like a medicine cabinet,
Oh yeah.
that is an odor that you'll often get from these.
I guess.
And then you also get ashy mint and cinnamon.
Not catching the cinnamon. The ashy.
I can smell the Band-Aids.
Delicious.
I don't know. It smelled like a campfire before. I wish I wouldn't have heard that, but
Okay. All right. So that's the nose.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to? Yeah. Let's
Cheers.
cheers. Cheers, Embers.
Oh,
It really does. Oh my.
it's just like I swallowed a fire.
Okay.
Oh.
So do you rescind your statement that the other one tasted smoky?
Yup.
Okay.
Yup.
so-
That was bad.
So the palate.
It's like literal just fire pit.
Like
It's-
why? And it has the gasoline aftertaste.
So
Oh,
this is one of the best Islas that I've had. The Lagavulin 16 is also
Best.
very good. This one is actually quite good. So on your palate, you should be getting peat, which
Who?
is peat, P-E-A-T.
Sorry,
like,
I don't know what that is. You've said it a couple times.
yeah. Sorry.
Folk.
So it's like sod. So it's like, but like decomposed vegetation is like the dirt part. So
Oh,
it's
it
like
just
very
lingers.
rich soil and grass,
Yep,
and then
the
they
dirt.
burn it, and they have these floors, and like smoke comes up. So it's very like earthy, dank, wet, burning sort of thing. that they're
Yep.
smoking with.
Aren't you bummed?
Those are
by it?
not great
Doesn't-
things.
Doesn't sound so appetizing.
probably enjoy it more than you are. So
So peat, and then maritime notes. So the other thing about Isla is that it's like very coastal, so you get like sea spray or like ocean vibes.
This is not something I would drink by the ocean.
Dylan describes it so well. I feel like I'm doing. I just realized I'm not actually drinking with you guys.
That's really good. Hopefully the Embers are feeling the same way you are. So barbecue.
No.
Barbecue is the
Ow.
note. If you don't want to finish it, I'm actually gonna have you dump it back in the bottle
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want any more than this right now. So barbecue,
Oh.
hint of pineapple and coconut,
Where's that? I
dark
want some of that.
chocolate, and tarry rope.
Yeah,
What?
the tar.
Yeah, tarry
tar
rope.
rope. Did you say rope?
Yeah, tarry rope.
Yeah.
Which the other note would be like, imagine that you had a flintlock rifle, and the little fuse that burns to like
Yep.
ignite it. The smell and the like taste of the smoke coming off of that burning rope is something that often gets so cordite. Is
Down the
another-
hatch.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
oh, okay. I just
Do you want that?
Sorry, I'll do the finish. The finish is medium long. Peat, waxy, floral, smoky, and a touch of chocolate. So anyway, yes, I do enjoy this. I am not as far into the Isla Scotches as some people are. So some people can really appreciate these even more than I can, but I am coming around to it. The thing is that I know that it is good and high quality. It's about learning to like the taste. And so Embers are catching me in the middle of an acquired taste journey here where I can stomach this and not like do this with it, but I'm not full to appreciation. So
What if I had accidentally just shot that one like I did?
that would have been a bummer.
that would have been ended up on me.
I would have been so sad.
You
We would have
would've-
been all sad. Oh yeah, it would have been. Oh man, it literally just. I still have a fire pit in my mouth.
Yep.
It's not. I just.
Oh, the other thing though is, so I also enjoy smoking pipe occasionally. And I found that I do like Isla Scotches better if I smoke a pipe or a cigar first.
Okay,
because
I
that,
don't understand that.
like, it preps my mouth for the smoke, and then I can pick out the other sweeter flavors. So if you're tasting along with me and you're an Ember who doesn't also mind like pipe smoke, I'd recommend that. So Anyway, this has been the Ardbeg Heavy Vapors. Thank you guys so much for tasting and getting back into the mortal spirits. It's so fun.
We
Thanks
are
for being
indeed
here.
mortal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, back for the second half, which I mentioned before we went to Mortal Spirits. We are talking about, I guess, the syncretism of the conservative movement, which we would consider ourselves to be a part of, and LGBT. And you might be thinking, that sounds like those two things wouldn't be compatible. And you'd be right. I think that they shouldn't be compatible. But unfortunately, that isn't exclusively the case. And there are some very distinct examples of individuals who align themselves, not only align themselves with the conservative movement who fall into the LGBT camp, but also people who do that and then are championed by conservatives. And I will again use the term boomer conservatives because that's oftentimes who ends up promoting these people. And that's just bizarre to me and strange. And so we're going to talk about that. Is it a thing? Why is this a thing? And then what do we do about it? So let's start with some examples. Do you guys have any examples of people who are this?
Bruce Jenner.
Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
The obvious.
Who
Well,
Yeah.
legally
what's his name now?
His name is Caitlyn.
Caitlyn?
Caitlyn Jenner.
That'd be
And-
like the
That's the most
probably not the
obvious.
like most prominent. Well, one of the most prominent, maybe, because
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Jenner was
An
prominent
Olympic gold
when
medalist.
He was, living his life as a guy.
And then decided that he wanted to be a really ugly woman.
Yeah. But also, like, he was a whole part of, like, the Kardashians.
Yeah.
So then he was still in the spotlight.
Yes.
They perverted and warped his mind.
Yeah.
Oh, hot take. Which isn't that hot of a take. Like, obviously, that's what happened.
I was hoping, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably that is one of the
Yeah.
main ones that will come to people's mind when they think, okay, but let's also then add to that, yes,
Yes.
because I refuse to use the pronouns, like names can be changed. I also think that calling a man by a woman's name is morally wrong also. But like legally, he changed his name to Caitlyn. So like names and the legality of that is a little bit weird. But I'm not going to call him a her because he's
No,
not a
'cause
her.
he's
He is a man.
Yep.
How did he end up then also associated with the conservative movement? Because if he's this
Yeah.
trans person,
Well,
like
he
that
went,
seems
like,
so far out there.
yeah. He went from Olympian to TV show star, I guess you'd call star. I mean, he was a main character in the show,
Right.
right? That was on for however many seasons. And then he went into the political space and he decided to, in California, which is like all in all so far left that he was like, I'll pick this like slightly left of the middle position,
Yeah.
which was he ran for office and said that
As a Republican, though.
yes, as a Republican, and said I will protect women's sports, which is also just so bizarre to me because
He's
an athlete,
dude.
he's an Olympian.
But that's the thing that people would argue is, well, he he competed and was successful as a male athlete, and
Right,
then
so that was
transitioned,
like
so
his
he knows better than
those-
anyone
that
else.
was his credentials. Sure.
So, but then he did not compete as a woman. So is that what he's saying? I was a
Correct.
male. I competed as a male, but I would not compete as a woman.
Correct. And I
and that
wouldn't
should be banned.
allow other men who have done what I did to compete as a woman.
Okay, I mean, like that's good.
Which is a correct statement, but also that does not qualify you to be a leader in the Republican Party.
Right.
That would
I
be
mean-
exactly what we were discussing in the last two episodes, talking about how honestly we need better candidates.
Yeah.
So don't even get him in the position of being the Republican option.
But
Because
people
that's
do
a bad-
intentionally.
That's
the
still a
thing.
bad
Right.
Republican option.
But people, and I think this is the misconception part. So let's have some more examples, and I want to talk more about then like specifically why this ends up happening. And you're right, it is giving us a worse option, but I don't think that people see it as ending up with a worse option, and so we need to
Right.
combat that perspective. But okay,
I had a few
Caitlyn Jenner.
Yeah, I had a few other. I don't know what we call Caitlyn Jenner a politician or not, but
I mean, he ran
he
for
ran.
office.
So in the political space, there was in Ohio, as the Republican actually voted down same-sex marriage originally, Rob Portman, but then later on his son came out as gay, and he then turned on his vote, essentially.
So he
And then-
himself was not LGBT.
No, he himself was not, but his a family member. But then there's also in Massachusetts, I think it was the Senate, Richard Ticey,
Okay.
I believe is how you pronounced it. Him, along with actually 3 other openly gay Republican politicians in 2015. Richard specifically was married to a man in 2013 named Bernie. They were all openly gay, and they actually specifically ran ad campaigns. So they were running in the Republican Party, and when they were running, they were obviously doing their campaigns, and they were running commercials. And one of them, his video was like him and his husband at a Pride Month parade, and that was like his ad for himself of saying like, look, Republicans can be gay too, or something. Then there
And that was a selling point.
Yes, there's an entire ad campaign of him with that. There's an ad with Richard and his husband. They're just like together in the ad.
Sure.
All of them obviously ran as Republicans.
The other one that I think you had written this down, who ran as
yeah.
gay and then was faking it. So this one's wild.
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Or purported to be faking it because a bunch of
No, he
his...
said he was faking it.
No, I thought it was just his friends and family were like, yeah, that doesn't really line up. And he
No.
never came out and officially said it himself.
George,
Maybe he did.
George Santos.
George Santos.
Oh, yeah.
He ran on a platform of being gay, and then they were like,
You're straight.
but you're not actually gay. He
Yeah.
was like, yeah, but I'm elected now. So they've kicked him out, essentially.
Yeah, he won.
Not aware of that.
Yeah.
And after he won, he also like had a bunch of interviews, and people were like, "Are you so excited that you won and you were like opening gay?" And he was like the Republican Party is so supportive and it's so great. Like, yes, there are some in our party that are not
He also
accepting
looks
of
gay.
me. A little bit. Like, he played the part well. Anyway, there
But
was
is that
him.
the point? Is that the point? Is that like
Oh no,
you
that
can
is
celebrate him?
that there would be called cultural syncretism to the max.
Yeah.
He literally was just using it to get into office.
Yeah, and I would actually say what you
Manipulating.
want about him. Like lying about who you are is a bit out there. So I wouldn't suggest that, just obviously. But the fact that he won, to me, that is the cultural syncretism part. That means that a bunch of Republicans went and voted for a gay dude and were like, yes, we want this guy to represent us.
But that probably was good because they would have voted left. But they got duped to voting right.
Okay.
That's still
that's a
not
good thing?
good.
I mean, it's a really slimy way to
Okay,
win. But like, I
I'm
get
re-
it.
I'm really with Heidi there. Like, yeah, they like, oh look, like we're getting the people who believe against us to go with us, but like it's like, oh, you're
But I wouldn't have
Like-
voted for him. See, that's the thing.
no,
Right, so
I
the
wouldn't have
you're
either.
just showing how like naive the Republicans are for
Yes.
not getting upset about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why
And
did
then
you all
also
vote for
winning
him?
people over.
Yeah.
So the
And
Republican
then-
Party's weak.
And then it comes
Yes.
out that you totally duped everyone, and then it's even worse.
Then we all look like idiots.
Yeah.
I didn't vote
Yeah.
for him, but
Well, yeah. And
I
he
mean,
was
yeah.
a
I
representative.
I
in
mean, he was
New
a
York.
representative in
But-
New York, not here. So
Anyway, so George Santos.
it makes everybody look stupid.
in the non-political space, though, I've also seen other ones. So there are some obviously like influencers and people that are just like culturally bigger names, I guess.
Yeah.
And one that I've seen a lot, like he's been on, again, not that all of these are great, but they would all consider themselves conservative. So Rob Smith is a pretty big influencer, and he's gay.
Sam
And-
Fox.
No, he's been interviewed pretty much by everyone on the Daily Wire, by like Andrew Tate. He's been interviewed by, I don't know, he's like a pretty big influencer on Instagram and TikTok and stuff.
But he's like quote unquote gay conservative.
Yes, he's considered conservative,
So
but
the,
he's
the
also
fact that
pretty
people,
loudly gay.
the fact that people like that get attention to me
Yeah.
is the problem, right? So I have some more that I would consider. I'd say they're political influencers. So there's
Yeah.
Tammy Bruce,
Mm.
She's a lesbian who claims to be conservative.
Mm.
Dave Rubin is in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
He gets a lot of attention for being a conservative commentator. He is gay, married, if you can call it that, and they like bought a child
Right.
through surrogacy.
Yes.
And it was just disgusting and horrible. And somehow he still has a platform in the conservative movement, and I don't understand that. The other one that I would note, in case people think I'm an anti-Trumper, I don't think I would say that I'm that. But Donald Trump was the first president to be elected as pro-LGBT. Even Obama, in his first term coming into office, was not pro-LGBT.
Very
Yeah.
true.
So, like, the hero of the conservative movement,
Yes.
pro-LGBT. And so, like, what in the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, why,
mean-
what is the problem? Why is this way? I don't
Yeah.
understand.
The other one would be Andrew Clavin, because while we may not agree with everything that the Daily Wire does,
Mhm.
they also, equivalently so, claim to be Republicans and conservatives. And they, just like most of these people that we just listed,
Seem
it's
to
a
want
little
to
questionable.
platform. They want to
It's
platform
they
these
use
people.
they use it
Yeah.
as a platform. And because they, like, at this point, they probably are one of the largest conservative media outlets that exists.
Or rather, one of the largest media outlets that has influence in the conservative space.
That
Yeah.
has influence in the conservative space. And Andrew Clavin's son is gay. He is married. They all say his son and himself claim to be Christians, and he uses that platform quite frequently to support and encourage. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are just examples of
Yes.
people who are celebrated, who are LGBT. So I want to know why. Why, for you guys, do you think that this is?
I think-
why do these people keep getting celebrated?
I think that the LGBTQ movement is going to filter into the conservative side of things
Okay.
much more quickly and more flawlessly than abortion, because abortion, like, is obviously the murder of someone, but LGBTQ is just love, is how they
That's how it's branded.
how it's branded. And so I think it's much easier to be like, well, yeah, I'm going to be kind to that person and I'm not going to hate on them because they're just living their lives. They aren't really hurting anyone, quote unquote. So I think
which is
that's
false.
it is false.
Yes.
But surface level, people who aren't going to think any deeper than that, they're just going to be like, yeah, and I have conservative values and I'm fine with a gay person being gay. So that's just going to filter into the conservative movement, and it's
I mean, that's kind of the slippery slope
point.
that started in the first place, too, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, what's the big deal about legalizing same-sex marriage? Like,
Right.
What they do in their bedroom, like, they can leave in their bedroom, and that is fine. However, the truth of the matter is they have not left it in their bedroom.
right. I mean, and it's not
All over the place.
it's not well, I guess it is just that. It's that they haven't left it in the bedroom, but it doesn't necessarily affect me. So I think that's why it's not quite as hated on by conservatives, and we're a little bit more open to letting that in.
I don't
and
think that's
filter in.
historically been the case, though. Like, I would tend to say that the main reason that it is the way that it is because the boomer conservatives want people to like them, and they think if they pick a George Santos, then they're gonna convince the libs to vote for the right things. And it's the same argument to me, going back to our last episode,
Yes.
of, well, if only the women knew what they were doing, they wouldn't want to have an abortion. And as we demonstrated, that is false.
We
It's the
debunked
same
it,
case
right.
with the left, right? They're not going to vote for a person who is gay and also conservative in every other aspect,
Mm-hmm.
right? You might get a few of the people in the middle who don't, they're like one issue voters who don't think about much of anything. But if you're actually a leftist, you're not going to vote for that person. You're still going to vote for it, because the thing is that the left is also putting up a trans non-binary
Right.
something or other, right? And then they're going to vote for that because it's more extreme. And so, yeah, it's just patently false to say that, oh, well, we can adopt, it's cultural syncretism, we can
Mhm.
merge these ideas
Mhm,
of the trans and the LGBT agenda
Mhm.
with conservative principles. And what happens is, so we talked about the melting pot. when you take two things and you bring them in, and the thing that results is neither of the two things that got put in. It's something different that's a merging of them. That's the same thing that happens here. You take the LGBT agenda and conservatism and you merge them in the melting pot, and you don't have conservatism anymore. It isn't that, right? It's become something else. So to say, I don't even think you can say conservative LGBT, because you've taken two dissimilar things and forced them together and resulted in something that is not conservatism.
So I think conservatism and politics are so intertwined with culture, and that's part of our issue. Like, if you're just going off of budgeting and how to run a country and what to spend the money on and how to be a good leader, that has nothing to do with LGBTQ.
But we would disagree with that, because you were even talking about the Defense of Marriage Act. So how the family works is integral to culture, and government then presides over said culture. So I don't think you can divorce the idea of what you do in your bedroom from the way that you run a country. I think those two things are intrinsically linked, and it ties back to the way that you view the world, right? We are Christians, so when people like us end up in office, we are going to govern as Christians. If you are a lesbian, you're not going to govern as a Christian, and it's going to inherently change the way that you govern, right?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
incompatible.
but that's what I'm saying, is that politics and culture are so intertwined, and that's why we have this issue. Whereas if you're just looking at like how to run a country would include some of those like acts and bills, but it used to be more conservative was just like spending less money and saving more, and liberal was giving money to the poor and doing all these things.
Are you distinguishing between conservative and fiscally conservative?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the word I was looking
So
for.
fiscally conservative does not a conservative make, I would contend.
Right.
So to say that you can be conservative and LGBT, that's using a reduced definition of conservatism that I don't think I would agree with.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It
So you
does.
could say, I think you could argue that somebody could be LGBT and fiscally conservative.
Yes.
But that isn't conservatism, in my understanding.
Which is the point, is that fiscally conservative and LGBTQ could go together, but now they cannot, because conservatism has gone into the culture.
Which I think it always has been, though. That's the thing. I don't think that that's a new thing, that fiscally conservative used to be the extent of what conservatism meant.
Okay.
I think that traditional family values have been under attack since, feminism started being a thing back in the early 1900s. I think it's a good distinction for the boomer conservatives who would like to reduce conservatism to fiscal conservatism. And I think that's a place where we have to say no.
We're beyond that at this
yeah.
point.
Right.
Yeah,
We're beyond it.
We've gone beyond that at this point. And pointing back again to the previous episodes that we discussed, when it comes to the issues within a party that we're discussing, like you said, by moving us to the middle and saying, oh, they're conservative and they're LGB, we're not gaining any votes.
Right.
But in fact, we could be losing votes, because someone that's truly conservative is going to say,
Like, no.
no, that
I'm not voting
I'm
for
not
Caitlyn
voting
Jenner. I don't
for
care
Caitlyn
how
Jenner.
Republican he is.
He's not Republican. He doesn't stand with any of the other issues that are important. He's just trying to be more inclusive, but you're excluding the people that actually back the conservative movement.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this syncretism, I think, is just this total, like you said, like, oh, we just love everyone and it's all going to be fine. And if it just affects you in your life, then we can compromise on this,
Right.
which we can't.
We cannot. And that, I think, gets at the question of what do we do about this, right?
Yeah.
Compromise isn't an option. So, like, I'm not going to vote for the Caitlyn Jenners of the world.
But I do think that there could, I'm gonna stick to my guns here. I think there could be a space for a LGBTQ conservative, not necessarily someone in leadership. I think that they should have more extreme and like legitimate guidelines around that and what the Republican Party really believes. But I think someone could still vote Republican even though they're okay with LGBTQ. Where I don't think is okay is if you are Christian and pro LGBTQ.
Yes.
Because those two things do not align.
Correct.
Conservatism and LGBTQ, I could maybe see it. And that's where I do think that Christians have to first be Christians and then conservatives, because there's always going to be a space where the conservatives, right, are light on abortion and we're light on LGBTQ. But, and all of that is worldly, and that's going to happen because we live in a sinful world. But if you're a Christian, then you are absolutely against those things, and you can call yourself a Christian conservative, because we're closer to the right side of things.
Sure, and I would argue then in the vein of conquering, in the spirit of conquering, that conservatism ought to derive its principles from Christianity.
Right.
Like, where else are you defining your morality if not that? So
Yeah, not the conservative party, the Bible.
yes, and but you are correct that yes, we are Christians first, and that is what makes these things incompatible. Not that we're conservatives.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pointing back to part one and like the whole what do we do, right? It's entertaining and fun to think of things that we can conquer Pride Month with, but I think that if we do take it back to the biblical like idea of it, there is a call to be thoughtful and to be engaged in this world, but not of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's First John 2:15.
Mm-hmm.
And the world's gonna hate us. Jesus told us that,
Mm-hmm.
and we still have to live our life. But as we do that, we have to engage in a positive way and in things like conquering Pride Month and passing those things on to our family and the generations, and hopefully generations to come and generations to come, so that at some point that grows to, instead of just our two households, however many households that is in the future. And then additionally, Paul speaks in 1 Corinthians 15:24-25, and he's talking about like Christ's ultimate victory over earthly powers and authorities, and that Christians should strive to conquer and overcome worldly influence. So I think in the like what should we do, it is something that we should work on doing, come up with ideas, take stronger stances on those things.
Right. Because it is not an issue that is just cultural and doesn't affect anyone. It massively affects this world, our children, and the way this nation is headed.
Yeah.
I think that we need to stop platforming and promoting voices like the Dave Rubins of the world and the Bruce Caitlyn Jenners or the Blair Whites, of people who, even though like there's the same idea of the foolish Christian and the wise Turk. We could rephrase that as the foolish conservative and the wise Turk.
Yeah.
Right? Why do we have to have those as the options? There are good conservative Christian voices that are saying the good things. So why are we amplifying these degenerates? The other thing I would advocate for, and somebody mentioned Elijah.
Yeah.
I'm bringing back Elijah. I think we need to resurrect Elijah style mockery. Right? So people who are like, oh, well, we have to be nice and like say nice
No.
things. No.
Yes.
Okay,
Jesus
I'm going to
was
read.
not even that nice.
I'm going to
Yes,
read.
I agree with that.
I'm going to read to you 1 Kings 18. I like the ESV for this. This is like, there's this whole, like, there's these prophets of Baal and there's Elijah, and they're like, yo, we're going to have a contest and see whose God is actually like real. And so then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose for yourselves one bowl and prepare it first, for you are many, and call upon the name of your God, but put no fire to it. And they took the bowl that was given them, and they prepared it and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they had made. And at noon, Elijah mocked them, saying, cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out upon them. And as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice. No one answered. No one paid attention. So I think we need to be like, you gay groomers over there, like, your god of gayness, is he relieving himself? Huh? No?
In the bathroom. So good.
Right? So like this idea that we have to be these squishy, wishy-washy, like just love everyone thing. No. Like this is a false religion.
Right.
Yes.
And it is Pride Month is the holy days, the holy celebration of this false religion.
Yeah.
And so what is the appropriate response? Elijah style mockery. I think we need to bring it back. And that is why I advocate for bringing back the use of the word gay as a pejorative. So like calling things like that's so gay. make it the negative term that it is, because it is.
I don't know how I feel about that one, but can you go to what actually happened then when Elijah called on God?
Why don't you fill us in?
So then essentially Elijah literally builds an altar.
Oh no! The first they had to go and dump buckets and buckets of
Yeah,
water.
but
Right,
he
right.
does that.
Oh,
Right, so
sorry.
he builds the altar and then he makes like a moat around the altar and drenches the altar in water. And he prays one simple prayer. I think he says like, Lord, show yourself and like rain it down with fire. And fire rains down from heaven and obliterates the
Not
whole.
just the bowl, not just the wood that's soaking wet, not just the water, but the stones of the altar are gone.
Yeah.
Just
Like
That's
it's
crazy.
literally just
Straight
like
up
a
nukes it, man.
It's literally it's literally like an asteroid like hole that's just like desert dry.
Yeah.
it's amazing. And like Elijah wasn't sitting there cutting himself to make this happen.
No.
That was pretty much life altering to everyone who witnessed that.
Yeah,
Changed
but
your
then
life
didn't
forever.
Elijah
I
have to
saw the stones
flee?
leave.
No, he killed all of them.
Yeah.
Wait, God killed him?
No, Elijah himself killed all the prophets of Baal.
Oh, then he fled? Isn't this when he fled?
And then he had to
Oh,
flee
so
because
there-
Jezebel heard about it.
Yeah,
There
and
were
he
no
was
witnesses.
like, peace, I'm
There was
out.
no one.
Well,
I don't know if there were
wit-
bystanders, but all the
yeah.
prophets, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he just killed all of them.
I didn't realize he killed. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff in the Bible, y'all. And the prophets are not light. And that's the point.
Yeah.
No.
They weren't just like, oh.
I really hope that you choose to worship the one true God, but
Right.
you know, you can celebrate your Baal month over there, and I'll celebrate my whatever over here.
I think Christianity has lost a lot of respect to the fact that we pander to so many things too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like we think we're making more progress than what we really are. From someone, I guess, out of this group who was a Christian the least amount, or true follower of Christ for the least amount. Like looking back, like, I mean, you're the easiest laughing stock, right? When you stand up for what you believe in, but you're taking the most serious, you know, and rubber meets the road. Like when you actually like ask somebody what they think, they'd probably mention someone, you know, who followed through with their beliefs.
Yeah.
Like an Elijah or somebody, but
Yeah.
And that's why I want to keep using the language like conquering, right?
Yeah.
So for those who are squeamish about that, I know I made fun of the pearl clutchers at the beginning a little bit, but it's
okay.
that willingness to be, and people will say meek. Meekness is strength under control. It's not weakness. So those who take on this weak posture and aren't willing to say this is what we believe and we're willing to fight for it, that's exactly right, Nick. So. Well, thank you, Embers, so much for joining us. I've had a lot of fun. I gotta say, like something like this, which is like spirited and really fun, and we got into it a little bit on different things, is not that the topics of like abortion are bad. They're heavy and they're good to have, but I do like following it up with something like this, where this is just fun.
Yeah.
This is really fun, and so I loved what you guys had to say, and I'm very interested to hear what you Embers have to say, particularly as it pertains to conquering Pride Month.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're listening to us, you found us on a platform. We're on many: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We have full video on YouTube if you want to see specifically our reactions to the Smoky Ardbeg Day bottle of whatever that was, and more. So wherever you're listening, please give us a like, drop us a review, leave a comment, maybe give us some name ideas for our Conquering Pride Month. So let's ignite that fire together, and there's no better way to do it than spreading this to your friends.
Yeah. And we are on short form as well. So please like and comment and share our shorts on YouTube and Instagram. And we're not on TikTok yet. So
Yeah. Hey, Nick, since this is your first episode of this, would you like to send the Embers away with the tagline?
burn bright embers.
burn bright embers.
There.
Woo!